Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing okay today. So I'm going to be discussing a few topics today on worrying about the end goal, and not focusing on enjoying the journey. So a little bit of information, and it's mainly more resetting your mindset around things for this discussion today. And I just wanted to explain a little bit of information on why we shouldn't put too much pressure on the process and start to enjoy certain things. Um, and don't get me wrong, with any type of goal that you want to achieve, most of the time it does require some form of effort. It's not necessarily saying like everything's going to be easy and it's not going to be difficult at all, but you can make this a little bit easier on yourself, because most of the people I speak to, whether it be a client that I pick up, or I'm speaking to someone over social media, or I'm just talking to someone generally in the gym, and they're wanting to change the way they look and feel, they've usually either done it in the past where they've put restriction on the process, and they've just focused on a certain goal and not necessarily enjoyed the journey, or they've just they've not been able to focus too much on being able to make sure that they change certain habits around their lifestyle to get the result that they want. um and a little bit of information I wanted to bring up with you, and some tips to move forward with things, is most of the time people generally tend to think of like weight loss and dieting as a form of restriction, a form of hard work, a form of like something which is never fun, and we don't enjoy this. Um and and that's really really difficult, because that's been like diet culture for a long period of time, and I blame fad dieting and people who give poor nutritional tips out to people, potential slimming groups who promote an unhealthy relationship with food sometimes. And that just affects the process that people are going down, because people feel the need to take lots of things away out their regular lifestyle, whether it be their diet. They feel like they need to exercise loads, and it's just not the case at all. And I just wanted to make sure that I give you some helpful tips to move forward, that you don't necessarily need to be putting so much pressure on yourself to get that end goal. And you need to stop as well and make sure that you start to enjoy the process that you're going down, and stop focusing, stop putting weight loss on this pedestal, and think I'll only be happy when I get there, and I'm only doing this to get a result. Because if you ever go on a diet and you say to yourself, this is the reason why I'm doing this, I'm only doing this, just be honest with yourself now. Please be honest with yourself and say to yourself, is this the reason why I'm doing this now? Is the only reason I'm having this meal, or the only reason I'm having this snack, or whatever it is you're doing in your diet, the only reason why I'm consuming that food is because I want that goal? Because if that is the case, then you need to change something around. 100% need to change something around. And if you are the type of person who's going to do exercise, and you're like, the only reason why I'm doing this is because I want to lose weight, then you need to set your mindset change for that. 100% need to change your mindset from that. And also, as well, if you are a type of person who maybe is like sort of like saying, well, I'm not going to do this now, I'm not going to go to this social event because I want to lose weight, or I'm not going to eat with the family, I'm going to eat separate, and I'm gonna do certain things and change certain things around within my lifestyle because I want to lose weight. Because if that is the case, if any of them points that I've just brought up are the case, then that is just promoting some form of restriction and an end date. 100%. And this is what we need to make sure that we're doing. I do this with clients quite a lot. I speak to them over the phone. I get them to fill out post consultation forms and find out just a little bit of information about what the actual issue is, where their cravings lie, what they enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis. Things like this matter the most, because if I was to say, okay, this is what I want you to do, if I was to just say, like, I'm going to send you a templated version of like nutrition plans, which has happened before with clients that I've got, and they've been with somebody else before, and they've been given a templated version. The only issue we find is with them type of like meal plans, whether it be any type of diet that people go on, you're playing a risky game, because any of that templated version of what they've told you to do, how do you know if you're going to enjoy doing that? Whether it be exercise, nutrition, anything like that. So how are you supposed to know if that fits in with your lifestyle at all? Because what we need to make sure that we're doing is figuring out what where the issues lie and trying to master them habits. Now, I can't obviously tell you exactly what they are and figure them out for you, but it could be something, the fact that you need to maybe change the way you're living your life a little bit more as well, whether it be becoming a little bit more organized, making conscious decisions, drawing a line when you've consumed a certain type of processed food, maybe changing a certain type of meal around slightly. So it may be something that you really enjoy eating, but we go for a slightly lower calorie version. It could be choosing a certain type of exercise that you kind of enjoy more than others, and you start to become a little bit more creative with your workouts as well. And then you think to yourself, you know what, I actually enjoy doing this a little bit more now. It might be the fact that you go and do an exercise session with a friend as well, and you enjoy that more than, exercising on your own. All of these things matter, guys. And as I say, like, even like things like your steps as well. It's like, if you're going out and doing your steps because you want to lose weight and you're not enjoying it, then we need to change something around. How can you make them steps more enjoyable? If you're going out and you want to socialize and you say, no, I'm not going to go out and socialize, well, that's going to affect your goals. So how can we go to that event, that social event, and still enjoy that meal and still get the result that we want? And basically still enjoy the process that you're going down, whether it be like you go for like a low fat products meal, or a low carbohydrate meal, or you don't necessarily go for a 3-course meal, you just have one meal. Maybe you don't have a drink with your meal as well. You don't have an alcoholic drink. You maybe have, like, which you usually have, you might just have the meal and I don't know, a water or something like that, or a Diet Coke. It could be anything like this at all. Just making these slight changes to your goal could be game changing for you, and change your habits around a little bit more with what you're doing. Because once you start to look at these things, figure out what you need to make sure that you master, and change these things around, you will go further on with your goal 100%. Because most of the time, if we start to put pressure on that journey there and we don't enjoy any of the process that we're going down, it's going to set you up for failure every single time. And we need to make sure that we're consuming foods with our family. That's one thing that I see quite a lot with a lot of the clients that I speak to, is I want to make sure that they're able to still, with the methods that I've given them, they're still able to cook a meal and, sit down with the family and still have the same meals. I don't want them to necessarily have a different meal to what everyone else is having. They want to make sure that they're sat at the table and having the same thing. And I think that's important as well, especially if you've been doing that already. And the same goes for socializing, as I said before. How long is that going to last? Just think about it. How long is it going to last before, like, we cave in and then we go back to our normal or our old ways, and probably put us in a worse place as well? You just think to yourself, do you know what? Things aren't necessarily working too much with my goal at this moment in time. I'm going to dread going back to to that diet, and this is probably the reason why people feel that way as well. And I don't necessarily blame anyone in particular. I just blame, like, diet plans and stuff like that. I mean, these people who've come along and they've promoted a certain way, they may be wanting to, to just get people in for the wrong reasons, basically, and not necessarily help them out. And I think it's very, very important to be a little bit observant of any diet that you go down as well, and just think to yourself, have a little look at it, have a look at the foods that are in it. Does it in line with your goal? Are you going to enjoy it? Does it fit in with, like, your busy work schedule, your family commitments? Does it fit in with your social life? Things like this. if you're going to exercise and you've been given an exercise plan, firstly, is it at the correct intensity? Are you going to enjoy it? Is that type of movement going to be beneficial to your goal in the long term? And just being creative with your workouts as well. Just figure out, a time where you have exercised and you did really enjoy it, and try to make sure that you replicate that on a daily basis. And that could be something as simple as socializing and exercising. It could be as simple as that. The fact that, a certain person that you used to go exercising with was, a good laugh and you really enjoyed training with them. You might just need to make sure that you go back with them and start training with them a little bit more than training on your own. And just little things like this, guys, can make a big difference to your goal. Because there's just so many fad diets out there. I mean, like, think of how many people that I've spoken to who have gone low carb for the wrong reasons, and it have gone even as low as keto. I honestly don't get why people have gone on keto in the past, because we need to make sure that we consider a low carbohydrate diet sometimes which could get a short-term win for people, especially if they enjoy consuming carbohydrates, because what generally tends to happen is they lose a lot of water weight and they get a little bit of buy-in with this, and it gives them a little bit more motivation and they slowly start to get some wins with things. But all of a sudden, what slowly starts to happen sometimes is we get to a certain point where we kind of really miss consuming carbohydrates, and it's like, oh, I just crave that like certain product, or I really want to eat that certain type of food, but I can't because I'm on a keto diet. Now, as not a lot of people may know this, but a lot of people could know this, is keto diet is basically a high fat, low carbohydrate, low protein diet. And it's like below 50 grams of carbohydrates. So if you were to try and go on a keto diet, you'd have to be counting like vegetables as a form of carbohydrate, and that is just like ridiculously low carbohydrates, and it would probably take you a long time to go shopping as well. And some people don't necessarily go that low. Like, some people just go low carb, and it helps them out for a short period of time. But I actually find, like, you know what, carbohydrate, I think a high carbohydrate diet it could be really, really helpful for people's fat loss goals. Carbohydrates are great because they can improve things like cholesterol and things like that. If you consume the correct type of carbohydrates, like complex carbohydrates, they can increase feelings of fullness. You've got plenty of fiber in, like things like jacket spuds, white potato, things like that, like amazingly high on the satiety index. They can keep you fuller for longer. Yeah, and they honestly, they could be amazing for you. They also prevent stress from occurring as well, so they can relieve stress, and they can help with sleep pattern. All these things massive that can really help you out with carbohydrates. And that does need to be considered through a large amount, really, of what you're doing when you want to change. If you're the type of person who doesn't really consume too many carbohydrates, then go low carb. But for majority of people I speak to, they kind of like in consuming carbohydrates. And if there was anyone who I wanted to advise to go keto, would be epileptics. And I'm an epileptic as well. I wouldn't necessarily want to go to a keto diet, but if it was someone who had severe epilepsy, and they were having fits every single day, then this would be something which could be prescribed to someone, to get them some form of results of preventing as many fits from happening, potentially, because it's being shown in so many studies. So that could be something there, but it's so sad to see that people get sucked into the keto diet so much. And it's usually because it gets them a result short term. It gets that quick fix, and that's why people usually go for that diet again, because they know they want that quick fix. They hate the way they look and feel, and they notice the drop in the scales as well, and the drop in water weight and things like that. Because we know, obviously, every gram of carbohydrates we're retaining like 4 grams of water. So you're going to drop a lot of water weight, but at the same time, that slowly starts to plateau as well, and it's water weight at the end of the day. It's not body fat that we're looking at. Um, so it's just looking at the bigger picture for this, honestly. And things like performance is going to go up with your carbs, as most people know this anyway. I work with a lot of runners as well, and they may need to make sure that they're fueling themselves plenty of time with forms of carbohydrates. And also as well, I didn't even think of this then. A keto diet is a high fat diet, right? And there's 9 calories per gram of fat, and there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates and protein. A keto diet is high fat, low protein. Some people don't think this as well. It's low protein as well, low carbohydrate. So, and we all know it's a calorie deficit. We need to be in a calorie deficit. People count the calories on MyFitnessPal, whatever else. So I honestly don't, I don't get why. Like, I mean, I understand like the purpose behind it sometimes, that it can get people short-term wins, but keto for me is like, honestly, please, just if you ever go on to keto, please, like, just DM me if you're listening to this now and you're considering it. DM me first, and I won't just tell you no straight away, because I'm quite holistic based. I like to know what people are doing and stuff like that. So just DM me, and then I'll like ask you first. What's the main reason you want to go on keto? What type of foods you enjoy eating, whatever else. Things like this matter a great deal. How do you socialize on keto? That's probably another good thing, isn't it? To think about how if you were to go out with friends or something like that and you wanted to drink, and well, yeah, it'd be tough. That would be quite challenging, wouldn't it? Even if you were to pick off a menu as well in a restaurant, it's like, it just puts stress on the situation, and it's like, oh, how am I going to choose these things? It could be really, really challenging for you. So just consider them things, guys. I think that's very, very important to consider. I went off on a little bit of a tangent on keto as well, but I thought it needed to be said and spoke about, because it's important to make sure that we figure out ways to get the best possible wins with your nutrition, and make sure that we don't put too much pressure on the process that you're going down. Now, I understand that we do need to change habits, and habits are really, really difficult sometimes. Sometimes we want to change, and that we just don't want to put that little bit of effort required. And it is really hard work to change habits around. And sometimes it's just easy to go in a restriction mode for a short period of time, get a short win. But you just need to look at the bigger picture of things. If you start to change small habits, and start to master your habits around your social life, your family commitments, your work commitments, making sure you're making these small, like can't get my words out today, slight swaps. And just also as well with exercise, figuring out what exercise is right for you. And if there's an exercise as well, because I work as a strength and conditioning coach, and I get that there's a lot of people out there that hate doing strength work. Like a lot of runners that I work with, like, can't stand strength work. How do we make it more enjoyable? Could we like switch things around? And I think I've spoken about this a little bit in like podcasts and stuff previously, but like, just trying to like be a little bit creative with your workouts, a little bit more. Things just slowly start to become a little bit more of a habit, because you start to enjoy things. Maybe make it a little bit more sort of like where you're doing an exercise and it becomes like more of a competition. You've got sort of that mindset as well there. So it might be trying to beat a certain amount of repetitions, giving you a goal to achieve as well. Because if you're that type of person who likes to hit a certain target, and you're quite competitive and stuff like that, it can be really, really good, and you really give you some form of motivation to go forward. And all of a sudden, once we start to change these habits around and we start to work at them really, like, well, we basically start to challenge ourselves a little bit more when we very first start of a period. Give it around about 6 to 8 weeks. of you doing this, say for instance, consistently trying to change these things around, making these small changes, putting that little bit of effort required, you slowly start to enjoy it, and then it slowly starts to become part of your life. And then you're like, you know what? Hang on a minute. It's like I'm doing this, and I'm not even having to think about it. I'm like, it's part of my life now. I don't need to change anything around it, and I don't need to focus on weight loss and or fat loss or whatever it is, and have to put this like diet restriction mode, hard work, no fun on this pedestal because I've got to get the goal that I want to get to and hit that end goal. I'm putting that on that pedestal and like thinking that's where I need to be. It's not there now. I'm just I'd do this anyway now. It's like it's just part of my life. And once you start to get there, once you start to master these things, then things start to run smoothly for you. And before you know it, you might get to that goal that you want to achieve, whether it be your wedding or I don't know, you're going away on a holiday or you just wanted to hit a goal within a period of time. You get there and you're like, I'm going to keep going. I'm enjoying this. Or it's just like, just part of my life. I'm just going to do it now. That's it. And that's what I do with clients quite a lot is figure out exactly what they need and building some form of education as well. I think education is a big thing because, you know, before I did my nutrition course, I didn't know a great deal. And, you know, I'd been on, don't get me wrong, I'll hold my hands up. I've been on fad diets before and I've been led down a restriction, hard work, no fun, no social life, changing my meals around, eating out of Tupperware boxes all the time. Basically thinking that I couldn't necessarily get that result because I had to put, you know, all this like no pain, no gain, hard work, too much effort, all of this in. And it wasn't the case at all. It wasn't the case. And I think that's very, very important to make sure that you understand these things. And once you start to do these things, you will start to get better results with your goal. So yeah, I think that's all I've got to say today. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any other questions regards to any of the information that I've brought up today, please let me know. If you really enjoyed this content today, please share, please subscribe, comment in, let me know what you thought of it as well. And I will speak to you all soon.